Hello and welcome to Shape the System, where we find and tell the stories that help people to rethink the way the world works. We interview people from all over the world who are helping to change our systems for the better. Shape the System is an independent podcast with support from KPMG High Growth Ventures, who help ambitious founders and their teams scale up for success. More about KPMG High Growth Ventures after the interview. We hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome to episode 2 of Shape the System. I'm Lucy Davey, the producer of the podcast, and I'm here with Vinny Turner, our host. How are you going, Vinny?
Hello. I'm fabulous. Never better, actually.
Oh, can I have some of that, please?
Yeah, I know you're not well, and I feel bad about that, but I have to be honest with myself. I'm actually in a really good place.
I'm very happy for you. But like I said, give me some of that. Give me some of that. No, it's fine. I have the common cold, but I'm acting like I've got Ebola. It's ridiculous. I've been stuck in
interestingly, I think you sum it up right. You actually have man flu, which is hilarious.
I do. I now understand the perils of man flu. It's horrible. Anyway, but enough about my bad health. Let's talk about the health of the planet. So this week's subject is all about plastic. How we relate to it, where we find it, how we use it. And it's a really fascinating subject for me. I mean, I have been a passionate supporter of going plastic free as much as we can, and of trying to do cleanups wherever I can. I join teams to do beach cleanups, and I'm horrified by, if you go to any kind of rock surface, you see the nooks and crannies, they're all completely filled with plastic these days. So any company or person that's tackling that problem is really close to my heart, and hence why I'm off my man flu deathbed to make this recording. So we've got a really incredible person this week.
In this conversation with Mike, the founder of ZeroCo, he totally rethinks our relationship with plastic, and I think he's talking about where we find it, just like you were saying, but also how we use it day to day, and actually how it's been created, and how it's been created and how we use it are not even aligned at all. So it's a super interesting chat.
True. Like with it, well, I mean, we're stuck with it, right? So we've got to start coming up with better solutions. Yeah. It's not going anywhere.
Absolutely.
They've found it in sedimentary rock formations now. So it is actually it's part of nature now. It is literally a part of, because it's compressed over however many years. So we're stuck with
the last 90 years since we invented it, or whatever it was.
Yeah, like the first time I ever realized that it was as big a problem as it is, I was up on the second highest peak in the Andes, so in the middle of absolutely nowhere. This is not a brag, by the way. I was not very fit, and it was a little bit like having man flu the whole way.
Was that after you came to San Francisco, by the way?
It was after our road trip, and then I almost killed myself on a mountain. I got bitten by something really weird that to this day I still have a scar where it bit me. But I digress. While I was up the mountain, I was on the outskirts of this tiny town, and the person that was kind of helping us up the mountain, our mountain guys, he said that they speak a language that basically is not spoken outside of those, like the tiny little village, which has a population of like under 100 people, even less than that. I think it was like 25 people that still lived there, that still spoke this tiny language that was like from thousands of years ago. And as we were walking past this town, I looked down and I realized that there was like Coca-Cola bottles, or like whatever the version of Coca-Cola. It was like Amatel products in their waterway systems, on the paths, and like looking down into these beautiful gorges that have had very limited human contact, and there's like plastic waste.
And it's there.
I remember getting super angry, and then I was like, hold my pack to the people that I was walking with. And I grabbed a plastic bag, ironically, off them, and I shimmied down a shale mountainside to get this plastic. And my guide was freaking out. He's like, please come back, ma'am. The person I was traveling with was laughing her ass off at me. And she was like, oh, here we go again. Because she's watched me dive into like terrible like waters and get like sea urchins stuck in my feet to get like a bag that I see out in the ocean and stuff like that. So she's seen me do it. She's seen me put my body on the line for plastic a few times. But so it's definitely something that I think that we need to tackle. Maybe not as ferociously as I did, because that probably could have ended with me being helicoptered off a mountain. But Yeah, so I'm very interested to hear more about what ZeroCo is doing.
Well, that's Mike and the team over there have come up with some pretty ingenious, far more convenient ways to tackle the problem. And I'm like, it's super exciting and just interesting to hear how he thinks about it and how some of the things they're doing.
It's a completely new. It's a pretty new way to think about it as well, right?
Yeah, I think it's some old thinking applied to a new context. So it's not that the whole idea of taking things and making them more durable and reusable is new, but thinking about plastic that way, and he goes into this in more detail, is super, super interesting kind of context. And then the solution presents itself out of rethinking that way. So it's super in the pocket for a Shape the System interview.
Amazing.
Which is super fun. Now, we also have, we've got to plug again the Conscious Space event that we're taking part in.
Yeah, so this is a really beautiful 2-day event. It's free. It's happening in Barangaroo. And I was looking at in Sydney, Australia, for our lovely international guests. So you won't be going for a few years at least to that part of the world. And we're not going to be seeing you. We're very sad about it. But Barangaroo is a really interesting place because it's kind of where mass consumerism and, I guess, corporate identities of many companies meet to the traditional lands of the people of New South Wales as well. So it's got a very long Aboriginal history, much longer than any of the buildings that are there. And the space that this event is in is actually quite thoughtful and quite embracing of that clash of cultures. And they talk really openly about what happened within that land and on that land.
Yeah,
and it's quite a cool space. But over the 2 days, there's going to be like pottery and like health and wellness and natural wine, which, goes hand in hand with wellness.
With all the other things.
Which is probably why I've got the man flu right now.
Well, we're interviewing Jimmy Halfcut, which, I'm definitely not going to take away from the interview because we're going to do a live interview and then we'll record it. It'll come out as an episode, but anyone who's in Sydney who goes to the event on either 13th or 14th of March, I don't know which of those days we're on, but you'll find out.
We're on the second day.
Are we? Okay, good. I'm glad you're on. This is why you're producing.
Have a little look at the program.
That's like reading the instructions. Why would
Vinny, please turn up on the right day.
Of course. Just tell me where I need to be. But he's doing. He's got some super interesting stuff around the Daintree, the Daintree forest up in Queensland, and how they're buying it back. And I definitely won't go into all of it because you'll hear it in the interview. So super stoked for that. That's going to be very exciting.
That's amazing, and that will probably be because that's mid-March. So I'd say that we'll probably put that out towards the end of March. By the time we've done some editing and kind of gotten it back, so you'll be able to hear that. So at some point this year, on that one.
But for today, plastic. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, if you are a Sydney listener, please head on over to our Instagram page because there's free tickets to go to this event. And there's, if you don't like us and you don't like the podcast, that's fine. There's wine and all sorts of other things there. So go and check out the event.
Lovely people. Absolutely.
100%. Yeah. People doing
and enjoy this week's episode.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Shape the System, another episode. Talking to Mike Smith today of ZeroCo, which I'm super pumped about. And as usual, we're going to jump straight in, which is both arms. Woo! I mean, obviously, we're talking about plastics today, and I think a lot of people kind of get the headline. There's a lot of it, and it's a problem. So I want to make sure that we have those headlines, but I want to dive a level deeper. So let's just unpack the problem of plastics, especially with respect to Australia and household waste.
Yeah, great. Awesome. And go. So look, the thing with plastic, look, there's a lot of problems with plastic,
right?
But I think the fundamental problem is that the way that we have chosen to use plastic is not how it was originally designed.
Right.
So if you think about what plastic is and what it does, it is this incredibly cheap, incredibly durable, man-made substance that's synthesized from crude oil, right? From petroleum.
Sure. Right.
And it is by design made to last for hundreds or thousands of years.
Right.
It's just that we've decided to use it for a couple of weeks and then chuck it in the bin. Right. So one of the things that I always say to people, which is a little bit controversial, is perhaps plastic is not the problem. It's just how we're using it that's the problem.
Right.
And so what's ended up happening is, number one, there was a big conspiracy from the big plastic producers to say that plastic is really easily recyclable and we've got all of the infrastructure that we need to recycle it and it's not a problem.
Right.
And we've been told that for a couple of decades now, right? Everybody in Australia thought for the last 20 years.
Putting it in the yellow bin, right?
That you put it in the yellow bin and it went to a magic place and it had a magic thing happen to it and it got turned into something else that was plastic.
What's actually happening when you put it in that bin, by the way?
Well, up until very recently, it was all being shipped overseas, right? We still don't have the infrastructure required to process and to recycle all of the plastic that's being used in Australia. So we were literally selling it to third world countries who were using it for scrap. For some of it was being recycled and the rest was either being burnt or put in holes or ending up in the ocean. And it's still happening. Right. And so the government now, they've just been found out that this whole thing is a bit of a hoax. And so the government is scrambling now to try and build hundreds of billions of dollars of infrastructure to deal with the problem. There was a waste export ban implemented in Parliament late last year, which means that we can't continue to export a lot of our plastic waste overseas. And the government is scrambling to try and find a solution. And look, the way that I look at this is that there's two ways we can solve this problem, right? One is that we can go and spend tens of billions or hundreds of billions of dollars building this incredibly complex infrastructure and recycling systems around the country to deal with all the waste that we're creating. Or we can spend $0 and just stop chucking single-use plastic in the bin to begin with, right? So ZeroCo has developed a solution that does exactly that. We've come up with a way to deliver personal care and home cleaning products direct to Aussie homes without having to use any single-use plastic whatsoever. So I think there's a lot of things that the government and taxpayers could be spending hundreds of billions of dollars on. Better schools, better healthcare, better roads, infrastructure that we actually need, not more recycling infrastructure when we can just solve the problem by being a little bit smarter about how we're using plastic.
Yeah. And so one of the things I tend to come to with kind of the problem and the solution is why now? Like, why is it possible now? And I was sort of thinking about this before coming on today. We've started to create a culture where people are used to buying stuff online, used to subscriptions, used to putting stuff back in the mail and returning it when it doesn't fit. I've literally got a microphone boom I'm doing that with at the moment because it didn't work. Is this part of what's created the ability to do this now, or should it always have been done like this and we've just been too lazy to solve the problem this way? Like, why now?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I think number one is the big companies who are ultimately responsible for the mass production of single-use plastic, the Unilevers and the Coca-Colas of the world, have had no financial incentive to solve the problem, right? It's cheaper and easier for them to make single-use plastic packaging, put their products in it, sell it to the customer at Coles and Woolies and let somebody else deal with the mess. And so there's been no incentive for them to solve the problem. And governments have been very slow to react to this, or that they basically haven't done anything. And so I think what has happened is there is a growing awareness, amongst a whole bunch of other environmental issues in the world, that we are probably living outside of our means and the stresses that we are putting on the planet are unsustainable. So in recent years, there's been a consumer-driven movement around seeking out alternatives to single-use plastic. And because of that, people like myself have been able to come along and go, hey, I've got an idea for how we can solve this. Here it is. And because of that pent up and unmet demand in the market, as soon as people come along with an efficient, elegant, cost competitive solution to the alternative, businesses are scaling. So our business is going gangbusters because we are solving a problem that people want solved, and we're doing it in a really simple and easy way for people.
Yeah, and it's interesting as well because, I mean, your actual approach to this, it's sort of, there's a few parts to it, right? There's you can buy the product specifically. There's obviously the dispensers that are designed to keep using. You just never need to replace that bottle. Then there's the refill packs that go into these, some of which come with it. So if you buy a detergent, then there's a couple to refill it, so you don't need to go back and get it 2 or 3 times, even in the first instance. And then it's essentially a mail-back program that says, here's a box that you get when you buy it, so you can send it back to us. And then something happens there. You're essentially, I mean, you simplified it one of the videos to we wash it and refill it.
Yes.
I mean, is it as simple as that?
Yeah. So just to unpack that a little bit, when we started building the system for ZeroCo,
right,
we said we want to have a holistic solution to the plastic problem.
Right.
So the first part is we go out and we collect plastic waste from the ocean.
Right.
So one of the two things we've got to do as a civilization, as a species, is we've got to stop making more plastic and putting it into the planet. And we've got to deal with all the plastic that's already made its way into our oceans and rivers and natural environment.
Right.
So we start by going and doing mass ocean cleanups. Our first one we did last year in Indonesia, we pulled 6,000 kilos of plastic out of the ocean.
Jesus.
We process that and we turn that into what we call a forever bottle that you keep and you use at your house forever, right? And when I say forever, I literally mean forever. We want these bottles to become generational objects, right? Things that you inherit from your parents,
like a Petite Philippe for your kitchen.
That's right. Like I always talk about the famous beetroot Tupperware container from the 1980s, the mustard yellow container that everyone's parents have in their fridge, and they've had it there for 40 years or whatever. Yeah. And my sister and I will compete for who gets to inherit that Tupperware container because it's a family heirloom, right?
Right.
And so I think about our products in the same way. Why shouldn't you inherit your parents' laundry liquid bottle or your grandparents' laundry liquid bottle? If we make these beautiful designer pieces that are aesthetically pleasing and hold value, they should be generational items. So we take plastic out of the ocean, we create a forever bottle, we send it to you, you keep it and you refill it forever.
Right.
You then get a refill pouch made from plastic waste diverted from landfill, which you fill up the forever bottle with. You send the refill pouch back to us, and we then have a process of cleaning and sanitizing those pouches so they can be refilled and reused again, which is us dealing with the single-use plastic problem and cutting it out of the system altogether to go to a forever use, reuse model.
And are the pouches like generational, to use your language as well, or they may not have the same degree of, you know?
I don't know if they'll be generational, but the design brief has been, we want to get 100 uses out of a pouch.
Right.
And so one of our pouches has got about 12 grams of plastic in it.
Right.
Compared to, so like our hand wash pouch, which is 1 liter, is about 12 grams of plastic.
Right.
And that replaces 2 500 ml hand wash bottles that you buy from the shops, which are each about 50 grams.
Right.
So a 12 gram pouch replaces 100 grams worth of bottles. And then we use that pouch 100 times.
Right.
So it replaces 200 bottles.
And I mean, realistically, if you're like, I'm trying to map this out to a household use, you know, like you go through a liter or something over a course of maybe 6 months if it's just one person in an apartment or something.
Something like that, yep.
So you might, the pouch might outlive you as well by the sound of it.
It very well could. It very well could, yeah. And so the interesting thing that we have done is we're in the process of building a world first piece of machinery which will enable us to clean and sanitize these pouches with medical grade sanitization technology.
Yeah.
And the goal is you put a dirty pouch in one end of the machine. It goes through a whole series of steps to sanitize the pouch, to check for any damage to the pouch. It then comes out the other end of the machine and goes straight into a filling machine and gets refilled and sent back out into the world. Yeah,
that's super cool. I mean, I think so many of these challenges are about understanding where the choke point is to be able to do something that doesn't scale. Like, how are you going to send all these pouches out? You got, 20,000 people who've signed up for this service. You're sitting there at night with a bloody pipette filling them all up. And clearly they don't work at scale initially, right? And these models don't scale, but then it's a manufacturing problem, right? And as soon as you can solve the slowest, weakest part of the manufacturing problem, then the rest of the thing does. Because there's a lot of infrastructure already here, right? The ability to send stuff out, the ability to take plastics and repurpose them for a new type of bottle, and the ability to have operating on scale and put smaller amounts in and have returns. All that stuff exists. It's a lot of it, I guess, in a double-edged way. You're repurposing a lot of the infrastructure to solve a different problem a different way, and then just finding that choke point being the machine. Have you actually had to have that machine built? What's going on there?
It's being built as we speak. It is due to be finished at the end of February.
Right.
And our first lot of pouch cleaning and sanitization is due to run in March.
Right.
And the machine has been designed to clean and sanitize 10,000 pouches a day.
Wow.
And up to 1 million pouches in a year, using less water than one household uses in Australia in a year.
Yeah, right.
That's the big metric we've set for ourselves. 1 million pouches with less water than you use in your house in the same period of time.
Go to the shower and, water the garden kind of thing.
That's right. That's right.
Fascinating. And there's like having a look at a lot of the material that's out there on ZeroCo generally, you're operating at a really high level of kind of transparency generally. Now, I mean, it's super refreshing, right? Like, I think if you go to one of the pages, it basically says, here's how the thing breaks down from a cost perspective. Here's how much we spend to go and get the raw material when we go to Indonesia and pull 6,000 kilos of plastic out. And, here's how the actual product itself and the shipping and handling, all this kind of stuff, which is super interesting. Is part of that idea that you're trying to open it up to create a different relationship with a customer, or is it actually to say, look, there's some of these things we don't know how to solve. We need you to know that we haven't solved them, and when we do, this is going to change. Like, what's the motivation there on that?
Yeah, it comes back to this core belief I have around radical transparency, right?
Yeah.
Which is honest businesses that are trying to do good in the world and don't have anything to hide shouldn't hide anything. And we've been through this era of hyper-capitalism and brands being so protective of their image and always wanting to be perfect and not telling people what's really going on.
Yeah, or when they stuff up.
And I just think that's total bollocks, right? I'm just a normal person. There's 10 people in our company. We're a tiny little company. We're taking on this big global challenge.
Yeah.
And we from day one, we have said that people are our partners in this project. The only way we're going to solve this plastic problem is through a grassroots community movement of people making active change in their lives. The government is not going to regulate single-use plastic out of existence. Government is big and slow and bureaucratic, and they're never going to get to this problem before it's too late. And big business are not going to solve the problem because there's no incentive for them to do it. So the way that I believe we're going to solve the plastic problem is from everyday people banding together and working together to come up with a solution. And so the best way to build friendships with people is to be honest with people, right? And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build a community of people that want to help us solve the problem.
Yeah.
And we're going to be radically transparent and radically honest with everyone who comes into our orbit. And that extends to telling people exactly how much money we make, exactly how much it costs us to make our products, telling people all the ingredients that are in there, opening up our supply chain and telling everyone who all of our supply chain partners are. Just being totally honest. When we make mistakes, we publicly come out and we say, hey, we just fucked up.
Yeah.
we're a tiny little startup. We're just muddling and fuddling our way through this solution and we're inventing on the fly, and there's going to be mistakes.
Right. And here's one of them.
And here's one of them. And we get in front of it and we be honest with people. And it's actually crazy and surprising to me how refreshing it is for a business just to be honest. Like, it's kind of a bit of a sad indictment on business in general that being honest is really refreshing.
Well, I think part of it's got to be ego, right?
Yeah.
As in, if you go out and you pour yourself into a venture, whatever that's a non-profit social venture, something with impact, and then you have to, make a decision about whether or not, something looks right, and you've got, the concern of what will our staff think or our investors think or even our customers think. I think you're right. It's heaps easier to just be direct and open with customers. You touched on one thing that I want to just go a little deeper on, though, which was this idea of supply chain, right? So a lot of bringing a new model to market, and I think this is even in your kind of About Us page, it's like you had to go and do a crowdfunding to be able to have a seat at the table with some existing suppliers and manufacturers. But these things, really work when you get to, huge scale. You target 20,000 as your sort of initial pool of subscribers, but there's 11 million households in Australia.
Yes.
And so it's part of this thinking here. If we really open this up, we're going to challenge the narrative generally, and we want people to follow this and other companies to follow.
100%. Look, I'm a very optimistic person, but I'm also a realist, right? And ZeroCo is not going to solve the world's single-use plastic problem by itself.
Right.
But if we can be a big enough pain in the butt to the big guys, to Unilever and to Procter & Gamble and Reckitt Benckiser and Coca-Cola and all these big guys, if we can just be such a pain in their butt by stealing market share, making so much noise, proving that the solution is real, that it is profitable, that it's scalable, then there's no reason for those guys to keep doing what they're doing.
Right.
And so if we can convince Unilever to stop making single-use plastic, which is going into our oceans and into our landfill, by saying to them, hey, we're a tiny little company and we're profitable already on this model. In 3 months, we've got to profitability.
Yep.
We've got to 20,000 customers in 3 months. If we can do it, imagine what you guys could do if you put your billion-dollar global machine behind an initiative like this. So we're going to poke the bear. Like, there's things coming out, and we're not here to start fights or to point the finger at anybody, but we're going to do some bear poking and say, look, if we can do it, you can do it. And we all need to work together to solve the problem. And that includes big business copying and following the lead of not just us. There's a whole bunch of little startups that are doing innovative, game-changing things to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And so my thing is, copy our business model. Call out, shout out to anyone who's listening. Come and copy what we're doing, because there needs to be 100 million ZeroCos in the world for us to solve the problem.
It's really like, I mean, it's sort of, it's reminiscent of what I think Musk did with regards to open sourcing some of the design of his batteries, I think it was.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think even to a degree Hyperloop, where he's sort of saying there's some IP out there, pointless us holding on to it.
Yep.
It's got to make your narrative a lot easier. But in terms of you getting to market, and you sort of touched on this, like, it's a very community-led kind of strategy. How's that come about? Is that something that you've seen elsewhere and thought that should be done here, or like where's that coming from?
I think it originates from the belief and the understanding that the way this problem's solved is through the community.
Right.
It's got to be community driven. It's got to be about all of us together, working together, banding together and saying, yep, we're going to get in and do the hard yards and solve the problem. And so because we came from that starting point, everything we have done from day one has been about bringing people on the journey with us, being inclusive, inviting people to come on the journey with us, acknowledging that we don't have all the answers,
right?
Acknowledging that we are flawed individuals as well. I still use single-use plastic in my house. You know, I'm trying to eliminate as much as I can, but
right.
I still go to Coles and Woolies and buy a packet of chips every now and again. That's, you know, plastic that has to go in the soft recycling.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to inspire people to join us, basically. And so far we've had, you know, amazing success, and people are really loving what we're doing and are really on the mission with us, which is, you know, so awesome and humbling and inspiring to see such a big outpouring of support from everyday Aussies from all walks of life, from all around the country, in every capital city, in every small town, and every state, getting on board and rallying behind ZeroCo, which is, it's been incredible.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, you've got, in fact, I think it's literally just happening as we're recording this, crossing the bridge to your initial target. Like, this was 20,000 households.
So we set this big target when we launched that said, basically, the average Aussie household uses about 50 single-use plastic bottles every year of the products that we make.
Right.
So if we could get 20,000 Aussies to sign up and start using ZeroCo, collectively as a community, we'd stop 1 million single-use plastic bottles going into landfill in the next 12 months.
Yeah.
And look, when we set the goal, it felt ridiculous to go, we're going to get 20,000 Aussie households on board.
Yeah.
And we've just done it. It's 3 months after we've launched, and literally today we've hit this amazing target, which is awesome. It just goes to prove that everyday Aussies want a solution to single-use plastic. They want to be part of the solution, and they're up for it. So it's awesome.
And is there I think, look, when you create identity, it's super powerful, right? And especially if people say, well, that's what I believe, and I want to be part of being a part of a community that believes the same thing, and then by the action, it's almost symptomatic of them being part of that community. And the example I always give is, you had Google Maps if you wanted to work out how to get from A to B, but you had Waze that was saying, here's how to commute, you know, and spend less time in traffic. And they kind of externalized the problem, right? They said, traffic's the problem and we all hate it, so let's hate it together. And let's all report things, and that's what you do as part of the community. That's your effort and investment. Yeah. But then you benefit from everyone who does that in the community. And it was a super clever strategy. So I think the community part absolutely makes sense, because it sort of leads to both identity and kind of a collective, you know, action and a collective outcome, which is always a bigger number than, you know, if someone said, well, stop doing it and you can save 30 or 50 a year, you'd go, you know, in the grand scheme of things. But as soon as you're part of 20,000 doing 1 million, that works. But I want to come back to something else that I think is critical. When you ask people to change behaviour, you know, which this does, right? I mean, there's certainly some of the behaviours there, but you're certainly saying, I want you to buy single-use plastics in a different way. I'll not buy them, I'll reuse them.
Yeah.
You've got to show them something that's actually better. It doesn't. We found in so many of these conversations that it can't just be, aligned to their values, they actually need to have other motivations to doing it. And I think usually it has to be cost equivalent or thereabouts.
Yes. Yep.
Is the model where you're going out and taking the plastic out enabling you to have some cost equivalence? Because, I mean, you published your prices versus other products of an equivalent nature, and they're cheaper or about the same price. Are you actually changing the unit economics of how these products are made?
Yeah, so look, one of the things we said from day one was we want to do all the hard work, right? We want to take all the hard work away from the end user. We want to make it as easy as possible for people to change their behavior. And the way to do that is to ask them to change only a tiny little bit. Right. So if you compare what ZeroCo is doing versus all of the other zero waste brands in the category, everyone else has come along and said, to solve the single-use plastic problem, you, the user, have to fundamentally change the way you use the product.
Right.
So a classic example is shampoo comes in a single-use plastic bottle. The only way to solve the problem is to send you a bar of shampoo. So you've got to change the way you wash your hair. Right. And I just think that's a shitty customer experience, and it's putting all the hard yards onto the customer.
Right.
Because most people don't like using a cake of soap to wash their hair. That's why shampoo was invented, right? So we said, why don't we do all the hard work?
Right.
We will give you the product in the format that you currently use it. So dishwashing liquid, we send you dishwashing liquid in a reusable pouch. You use the dishwashing liquid exactly the same way you use every other form of dishwashing liquid you've ever used in your life that comes in single-use plastic.
Sure.
We solve the problem, right? You empty the pouch into your bottle, you send the pouch back to us, and we do the hard work of working out how to clean and sanitize and refill the pouch.
Right.
So that was the starting point, was let's remove all of the possible friction points that could make a customer or a person not want to become a customer of ZeroCo.
Right.
And then we laddered on top of that, okay, if we are going to inspire you to change over to ZeroCo and do that as easily as possible, we also need to wow you with the product and the service.
Mm-hmm.
So we went out and we formulated all of our products from the ground up. We removed all of the nasty ingredients, bleach, petrochemicals, all the bad stuff that goes into a lot of these products. We took them out of the ingredients. We then sent all of our formulas to independent testing laboratories, and we said, test these against the top-selling, top-performing products in the market. And if we didn't meet or beat those products, we went back to square one and reformulated, did test again, reformulated, did test again, reformulated, did test again. So you'll see on our website, we publish, again, being transparent, we publish the independent lab results of our products versus comparable supermarket brands.
Mm-hmm.
And we perform as well, if not better than those brands, without any of the nasty ingredients. And on top of that, we match their price point.
Right.
So our value proposition is it works as well, if not better than what you're currently buying. It's the same price, 30-day money-back guarantee, single-use plastic free. We do all the hard work. We deliver it direct to your door. All you've got to do is keep using the product in exactly the same way you currently are. Send back some pouches in the mail, which we cover the cost of.
Yeah. And I think, the customer proposition is, super strong. I think the thing that I'm trying to understand as part of the economics of that, for these things to scale, and you said it before as well, right? You've got to work out how to create profitable, sustainable businesses so you can scale them and so people can emulate them, right, or borrow from them.
Yeah.
Is there, insofar as that are you basically, I'm going to probably be a little more direct here, but have you found a way to get the raw materials to make this stuff cheaper? Is the unit economic model different because of the way the subscription works, or are you accepting a lower margin on the product based on having a longer and larger lifetime value across more products? What's happening in the economics of this, I guess?
Yeah, sure. So no is the short answer. But essentially what we've done is we've just cut out the middleman, right?
Right.
So we don't wholesale. So if you sell your products to Coles or Woolies, they want to make a 30% margin.
Right.
So instead of selling to Coles and Woolies, we sell direct to you. And that extra margin that we make allows us to fund ocean cleanups. It allows us to fund covering the shipping cost of the pouches back from you. It allows us to cover the cost of doing the pouch cleaning and refilling.
Right.
So we've essentially replaced a clunky old traditional supply chain with our new supply chain and cut out the middleman.
Right. Okay, that's super interesting, because I think about kind of the rub of these things is, well, like, yes, solve single-use plastic, but it feels to me like if someone's trying to bring a stronger proposition to market but doesn't have the economies of scale, and I'm sort of making air quotes when I say that, around, distribution and existing distribution through a bunch of shop fronts, call it a large retail network,
Yeah.
and they're giving up a whole bunch of margin to do that. They're able to say, well, let's not do all of that, but it'll fund all the other stuff that we're doing, and we'll still be able to run sustainable businesses. And that's sort of how that's pieced together.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. I hadn't sort of got my head around that aspect of it. It wasn't until I really looked at the kind of the transparency part. And then in terms of actually, where you take this, I mean, you mentioned Coca-Cola a little earlier on, who I don't think are in the household cleaning products kind of space, but sound like they're a target for the way that they operate their business. Do you think this goes beyond household plastics? I mean, the whole idea and the model, maybe not for you, but
I 100%. Like, I'm 37, and I remember getting milk delivered and picked up when I was a kid. Right, that still existed as a service when I was young. So that's not that long ago that we used to do this exact same model in another category, right? And we just decided we weren't going to do that anymore, and we're going to put bottle in single-use plastic bottles that you use once and chuck in the bin. Right. But 30 years ago, it used to come in a glass bottle that the milkman came and picked up and cleaned and refilled. So, like, why can't this model exist in every other category?
Yeah.
It should, and it can.
It should and it can. I think I'm thinking about the scale and the depth of the logistics that exists today in terms of getting stuff to people and getting stuff from people is infinitely stronger than when the milkman was going around.
That's right.
Whatever he was using. I think it was a very unsafe situation where the kid, like the paper run, would be in the back of some
hung off the back of the truck. Yeah, totally.
I was just thinking, I was thinking the milkman was probably before my youth, but clearly not. I think we're roughly the same age. I think I'm a tad older.
Yeah, it was around. It was around in my very early childhood.
Yeah.
But look, one of the things that a line that I've often said to people that we've tried to get on board, whether it's supply chain partners or, suppliers or whatever, I just say to everyone, because there's often a lot of reluctance to try and do something new. And when we're trying to push and force and inspire our partners to change and do things differently, there's often a lot of pushback. And I always just say to people, look, if we figured out how to put a man on the moon 60 years ago, we can work out how to clean and refill packaging.
Sure.
Right, at scale in 2021. The technology exists, the brains exist in the world. It's just the willpower to come along and innovate and go, let's stop doing stuff that's dumb and do stuff that's smart and better for the planet.
And I totally agree. There's actually a really funny Brian Reagan stand-up routine where he talks about if we can put a man on the moon as the entry for anything that's not currently working in your current orbit. It's like if you can do that, surely, or any of these things, an iPhone cable that doesn't tangle, single-use plastics, any of those problems should be solvable if we direct our attention. That's what I come back to customer behavior, because I think when things require behavior change, and I think the example that sort of came out of the Ubers and Airbnbs was the idea that you would go into someone else's car or house and it required a leap of faith, right? And what solved that problem was not only, hey, it's actually once you do it once, you go, okay, that's fine because of all the other benefits. It's cheaper. It was, easier. You looked cooler. The car came. It was reliable. All those other benefits.
Yes.
But it did require for someone to show you, right? And so this idea that you turned a customer into an advocate feels like a big part of how this goes from 20,000 to 200,000. What's blocking this? Like 20,000 is an amazing milestone. But as you said, if it's 1 million, there's something like 500 million a year. So how do you get to 200,000 or 2 million, do you think?
Yeah. We keep doing what we're doing, basically. We keep being honest with people. We keep innovating. We keep pushing the boundaries. We keep trying to introduce ourselves to as many people as possible. We make time to be on podcasts. We run as many ads as we can. We talk to journalists. We inspire our existing customers to go and tell their friends about it, tell your neighbor about it, tell your workmates about it, tell your cousin about it, tell a stranger in the street about it. Just spread the word about this solution that is really simple, it's cost effective, it's convenient, and just talk to as many people about it as possible. We're scaling at a crazy rate. Month-on-month sales are like 57% growth every month for the last 3 months since we launched. So we just keep doing what we're doing. We just keep trying to solve the problem, provide as exceptional customer service as we can, make sure everyone's deliveries get there on time, make sure the products continue to work really well, just continue to execute at a really high level. The thing will snowball and it will grow. Yeah.
And I guess part of the reason I bring it up is because I think sometimes there needs to be magic in these things. And I think you've changed the way the model works, and there's a critical problem around the refilling that's a mechanical problem to be solved. But a lot of this is actually just about running a business incredibly well, running something that has great visuals and great branding and great community. I think people overlook that you just get that stuff right, work out your core proposition, make sure you've got a set of customers who absolutely fucking rave about it, and then go and just execute incredibly well. That you can't get away from that kind of stuff. I want to come back to how you've arrived solving this problem, though.
Yes. Who am I? How dare I have these opinions about plastic?
Well, there's a little bit of that, but I think it's also was it kind of how did you land on not just the idea, but the need to go, everything else is irrelevant now, I need to be doing this? Yeah,
totally. Look, I am by no means an expert in plastic, and I've said this to everyone from day one. I'm not a plastics engineer. I've never worked in the plastics industry. I don't know anything about personal care or home cleaning products. I'm just a guy who's just said, I'm going to figure out how to do this. I'm going to go and do it, basically.
Right.
So the idea actually came to me about 2 years ago. I sold my previous business. I had a winemaking business, which I sold.
Right.
And my wife and I packed up our lives into boxes and went on this amazing, epic, life-changing 18-month trip around the world, hiking and trekking and backpacking.
Beautiful.
Through the most remote, far-flung corners of the planet. We went to places we trekked along the border of Tajikistan and Afghanistan. We went to Kamchatka in the far northeast of Russia. We went to North Korea. We went to the most remote, crazy, far-flung places you can get, as far away from civilization as we could get.
Right.
And I was just blown away by the volume of plastic that we saw everywhere in the most remote wilderness pockets of the planet.
Right.
There was plastic. And so I just said, when I get back to Australia, I'm going to start another business. I've had some experience building businesses before, so I know kind of how to do it from a business perspective.
Right.
I'm going to come back to Australia and I'm going to try and solve this plastic problem.
Right.
And so I came back and I just started working on it. I researched and I read everything I could read, and I talked to everyone I could talk to, and I built a team of experts to sit around me and help solve this big problem. And then I just said, you know what? I took a leap of faith. I put my life savings on the line and we launched this thing. And the rest is history, as they say.
And both you and your wife are in the business. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
And so, what's that dynamic? Because that I think a lot of the a founder dynamic generally is challenging, but founder husband-wife dynamic. We were talking to Geordie and Julia Kay, by the way, who also came out of winemaking and are solving an issue of plastics, which is totally separate to what you're doing. Yes. I'm like, maybe there's a trend here with couples coming out of winemaking who are going to solve all of our environmental problems. I don't know. The 2 data points is a trend. How is, you talked about that as a joint journey, and then was that how the process worked as well to bring it to life, or?
Yes and no. So the vision was never so my wife is Alyssa.
Yeah.
Our vision was never to be business partners, and that's not the vision for this project.
Sure.
My wife comes from a pretty robust production background.
Okay.
And so when I first said
words, by the way, robust.
Yeah. When I first said, okay, I'm going to do this, I said, can you help me just get this thing live? Because I need someone who knows about production and supply chain management and sourcing and all that stuff.
Right.
And so I said, can you give me a year? Can you just come and help me do this while I get it off the ground?
2 years later.
And so she's been a trooper. This would not have been possible without my wife. But she's starting now to transition out of the business.
Got it.
So she's gone back to 3 days a week as of a couple of weeks ago, and we're recruiting someone to replace her role. So probably in 6 months she'll be out of the by choice out of the business, because we want to be husband and wife, not business partners.
Yeah.
But I could not have done it without her. So yeah.
Yeah, that dynamic is
my amazing wife.
I guess that sort of leads me to probably my last question around, where you've got to from here, and Alyssa is a big part of that. But, typically at a stage where you've got something that at a relatively small, 20,000, no small number, obviously, but compared to the size of the challenge.
Yeah.
a number of highly engaged people who love the product and a model that's working, right? Both a commercial model and a product model. There's usually like a next major kind of milestone, I guess, or blocker that's stopping you from getting to the next major milestone. And you did touch on it saying, well, we just need to keep going. But part of the whole point of this interaction, this dialogue that we're having today, is also to try and understand what's the biggest lever that pulled better is going to absolutely 10x what it is that you're doing today. Is it a capital thing, a manufacturing thing, a customer advocacy thing? Like what's the big lever here?
Yeah, look, we're very fortunate that we're profitable after 3 months as a business, which is very unheard of.
Yep. Very.
And so we've got cash to grow. We are growing profitably. We're not one of those businesses that's gone and raised a heap of money from investors and just burning it endlessly and then go and raise more money and burn it and go and raise money and burn it. Yep. We are trying to build a company that grows profitably and is sustainable. We have raised a bunch of money from some really big investors, which has given us the cash flow to get to where we are.
Sure.
And will give us a runway to continue to grow. One of the key challenge I see at the moment is being able to get the number and the level of really motivated, really hungry, really quality staff to come and join us on this mission, because we're a team of 10 and we need to be a team of 50 probably in 12 months' time. And so recruiting 50 world-class, super hungry, super passionate, tenacious, won't take no for an answer, absolute go-getters that want to come and help us scale this business. We want this to be a global business. It's a global opportunity. It's a global problem we're solving. We're pretty bullish about the potential of this thing. And that's the real thing right now, is how do we find and recruit and inspire a whole bunch of people to come and join us on this journey. So if you're listening and you're looking for a job, jobs@zeroco.com.au, send us an email. If you're an awesome human, come and help us do awesome work.
That's good. That's strong, because I was hoping there was a very specific thing, because that's a big part of what we're trying to do and having these conversations. It's not all about how much did you raise and what was it like when you ran out of money. I think just I want to, as a part B to that question, because I think it's critical, like those roles, obviously it's a customer service centric organization. You've got 10 people who are dealing with 20,000 customers. A big part of that is actually dealing with the customers, for sure.
Yep.
Is it customer service driven, or is there kind of other roles that are really, really critical in that?
We are a customer driven organization. It sits at the heart of everything we do, but the roles are many and varied, where we need more production and supply chain people to manage our partners and our logistics and our whole entire supply chain as it scales. Yep. We need more digital marketers. We need more hands-on customer service reps. We need some product experts. We need accountants. We just are on a massive hiring binge at the moment. We've got 5 roles that we're actively hiring that we're trying to fill this month, and there'll probably be another 5 next month. So it is any traditional field of business, from customer service to HR to marketing to finance. We need them all.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Let's hopefully we can shift the needle on that for a couple of them. Like, awesome talking to you, and amazing to hear more of the detail about it. And I'm really hopeful that we can help you shift the needle on some of those immediate concerns. But I'm also interested to check in a little while as well. I've actually just signed up this morning. I'd signed up previously but didn't complete my sign up. But would love to be checking in 6 months, 12 months time as well, and seeing just where it's going to from there. I think you're onto an absolute ripper.
Totally. How about this then, Vincent? Let's do another one in February next year, and hopefully by then I'll have 100,000 households signed up.
I think that's a good milestone. I'm absolutely committed to a check-in a year from now. I'd love to do it.
Yeah, awesome, man.
Thank you again for being on the show. Yeah.
Oh, my pleasure. Good chatting to you. It was awesome. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Cheers.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Shape the System. As usual, if you'd like to suggest a guest, someone that you know who's helped change a system for the better, please go to www.shapethesystem.org, click on the top right-hand corner, then click Suggest Guest. Make sure that you click subscribe so that you get the new episode. Shape the System is an independent podcast with support from KPMG High Growth Ventures. Connects founders to the services they need along their journey. Whether you are looking to refine your strategy, mature your finance function, prepare for a capital raise, expand abroad, or simply comply with regulatory requirements, they provide you with the support you need to drive your business forward.